Bring in show music, please.
Hi, I'm CNBC producer Katie Kramer. Today on Squawk Pod. No lump of coal for Congress, a deal to avert government shutdown.
Ever seen a bigger piece of pork?
Pork.
But it's huge, 1,500 pages, says our Emily Wilkins.
It just includes so many additional provisions plus that funding.
And it may make it tough for Republican leaders, host of Morning Joe and former Congressman Joe Scarborough.
You're going to have a unity government in the House of Representatives.
And security expert Cris Krebs joins us on ways we can curb China's cyber breaches.
Tariffs could work, but I think they're a cudgel at this point rather than a really precise tool.
Plus, a possible mega merger in the car industry, an AI staffing boom for Salesforce. And is Elon Musk a security risk in the new Trump world? When to bring up the baggage for advisors, for senators like Elizabeth Warren, for anyone.
Every time it gets pointed out for her.
What about Trump?
Every time it gets pointed out for her.
There you go. Maybe more.
It's Wednesday, December 18th, 1 week to Christmas. Squawk Pod begins right now.
Stand Andrew by in 3, 2, 1. Cue Andrew.
Good morning. Welcome to Squawk Box right here on CNBC. We're live at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. I'm Andrew Sorkin along with Joe Kernen. Becky is off today.
Maybe these two should get together. Nissan soaring by more than 20% in Tokyo after a report by Nikkei news service that Nissan and Honda were in merger talks. The report said a combination was an effort by both companies to compete with larger rivals. And you know what it's all about. Everybody's got to try and take on Tesla if you want to be in the EV market, and maybe this makes sense for these two. Honda and Nissan are considering operating a holding company. Could also bring Mitsubishi under that umbrella. Nissan, Mitsubishi's top shareholder with a 24% stake, and shares of French automaker Renault are also higher. The company owns a minority stake in Nissan. God, it's very
I feel like
incestuous.
Carlos Ghosn is sitting there thinking to themselves, this was always part of some kind of crazy strategy by the Japanese to merge up all of their automobile makers, and that if he was in the mix, they would not have ever let this happen.
Where is he now? Is he back here?
No, he's in Beirut.
He's in Beirut.
He's in Lebanon.
Okay. Well, he's not in Japan.
And he can't leave Lebanon.
He can't leave Lebanon.
Can't
Would
leave.
What if he came here?
He'd be arrested.
He would.
Remember, he was arrested.
I know.
He was arrested in Japan, and then he had hired people to smuggle himself out.
It was actually an amplifier.
In a music instrument box on a private plane. They went to Lebanon.
But he can't come here.
He can't go anywhere. That documentary, they were filming him in Lebanon. That was it. He's very limited.
Lebanon, huh? I guess it might be better than prison in Japan, but it wouldn't be my first choice, probably.
They used to call it the Paris of the Middle East.
It was, yeah. It was a long time ago.
Congressional leaders have struck a bipartisan deal to keep the government funded beyond Friday's deadline. This is what Joe was saying at the very beginning of the broadcast. The stopgap bill would extend that deadline through March 14th. It would give the new Congress and incoming presidential administration time to decide how the government should be funded for the rest of the year. The bill includes $100 billion in new emergency funding to help states. That includes North Carolina and Florida, and try to recover from those hurricanes, as well as western wildfires and other recent disasters. It also includes another $10 billion in economic assistance for farmers. That had been a key sticking point in recent days, and the bill includes language that would overhaul pharmacy benefit managers, another sticking point of sorts. It restricts U.S. capital investment in China, and then it also paves the way for a new stadium for the NFL's Washington Commanders.
Of course it does.
Of course it does, because that makes a lot of sense. It also raises pay for lawmakers. So of course it does. No. Overnight, though, a lot of commentary. Vivek Ramaswamy posting on X, currently reading the 1,547-page bill to fund the government through mid-March, expecting every U.S. congressman and senator to do the same. Should have had probably an eye roll emoji after that. Elon Musk then commenting on that post saying this bill should not pass. Musk later posted this photo of the bill with the comment, ever seen a bigger piece of pork?
Pork.
And so, I think one of the most interesting things about the sort of DOGE commission is just how effective perhaps Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be, not just identifying places to cut, but perhaps more importantly, using this sort of megaphone that is X and their own megaphones to persuade and influence folks in Washington. Clearly didn't persuade them in this case yet, but maybe more to come. We'll see.
Cynical people that say it's a bipartisan problem would look at this and say, Mike Johnson is part of, and I mean, I have some empathy for what he's trying to do. He's trying to hang on to a speakership. He may need to get Democratic support to get this through. I think he's got Trump support for now at this point, but Trump's not president yet either, president-elect. So I don't know what would happen if the makeup of Congress and the executive branch after January 20th. I don't know if this gets done at that point. But at this point, you got to do something until March. I mean, we don't want to play around with this. What's another couple of $100 billion at this point? When the big
round up.
That's what they're thinking. Now to a New York Times report that says that Elon Musk and his rocket company SpaceX have repeatedly failed to comply with federal reporting protocols aimed at protecting state secrets. The report says concerns over those reporting practices have triggered at least 3 federal reviews by separate Defense Department offices. At issue, Musk's top secret security clearance at SpaceX, which makes him privy to classified material. He might even know what's going on with the drones. As part of the security clearance rules, Musk must report information about his private life and foreign travel, but the report says Musk and SpaceX have not adhered to those reporting requirements since at least 2021. And among the details that weren't reported, meetings with foreign leaders, full travel itineraries, and use of any drugs, including prescription medications. This is another thing after January 20th. I wonder whether a lot of agencies will be quite as energized to look into all these things with Elon Musk at that point.
Well, and that was always a question mark about all this, not just about Elon Musk, but even more broadly than that.
Right.
Meantime, Senator Warren, Elizabeth Warren, sending a letter to the Trump transition team asking them to hold Elon Musk to the same ethical standards as other transition members. She wrote the following. She said, currently, the American public has no way of knowing whether the advice that he is whispering to you in secret is good for the country or merely good for his own bottom line. In response, the Trump team called her Pocahontas and accused her of playing political games on his platform, X. On the platform X, Musk then posted a AI-generated photo of Senator Warren in traditional Native American clothing. Elizabeth Warren, of course, one of the senators scheduled to meet with Scott Bessent today, Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary. So the name calling,
well, but the irony of saying, I mean, it's kind of funny that he said, okay, he's got to have the same ethical standards as the other cabinet nominees.
Right.
And some of them on the left have obviously, and right, have raised some eyebrows. So it's just, my point was maybe it's not the highest bar to have to, Elon might be there already above some of the appointees. The other thing I saw yesterday, and this is obviously on my Twitter feed, is that the left gets a lot more upset at calling out Elizabeth Warren for that type of stuff than they do at her for using that stuff to sort of advance her career through all these years.
So the only thing I would say about this is she did something that was at minimum a mistake, at worst much worse than that.
Right.
But it's been identified. We've talked about it. We've talked about it for years.
Right.
And it was, quote unquote, I don't want to say disclosed. It was disclosed through reporting to figure out what had happened.
Right. But
I think it's important for all of these things, and I'm not that whether it's Elon Musk or anybody working in government, that we have that the public has access to understand what's going on and who's doing good things and bad things and all of those things. That's all I'm saying.
Everybody's got a lot, I guess, in their closet, but that doesn't make it
that's
off limits just because it hasn't been laid to rest. I mean, it's kind of a glaring problem.
Sure, but I would say, Trump has a
which are pointed out ad nauseum. Which are pointed out ad nauseum.
There's a lot of closets.
But it's not equally pointed out, I don't think.
Every time it gets pointed out for her.
What about Trump?
Every time it gets pointed out for him.
There you go. Maybe more. I haven't heard it about. I mean, I hear I don't hear.
And by the way, actually, with Trump recently, less pointed out, but that's okay.
Maybe, right. But I don't think you know, my problem with legacy media, I don't think the legacy media points anything out with Elizabeth Warren. She's got a total pass. She's fine now. They point out stuff for Trump, but the only people that say Pocahontas are the people like Trump and
well, but the question is, what is the penalty box?
How long do you stay in it, you mean?
Yeah, how long do you have to say Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, if that's even an appropriate thing to do?
Right.
What is the duration with which that is?
I don't know how you ever get out from under that, actually. And she gets reelected every time in Massachusetts. So just like Trump was litigated, whether he's Stephanopoulos or a insurrectionist or any of those things, he was. That was litigated again, and it's still going to be pointed out, I think, maybe less so, since you win the popular vote, 7 swing states, and
that's the question.
I don't know what you never get out from under it.
You may not get out from under it, but you could. People talk about Bill Clinton. They don't always talk about Bill Clinton in the context, but then they maybe do. You're going to always talk about MBS and Khashoggi. Is that how? I mean, this is what I'm saying.
Right. Yes. Salesforce is increasing its sales force. Companies hiring 2,000 people to sell the AI software that it's producing to clients. And it's kind of interesting here because the software is being used to make AI agents, but you need 2,000 additional people to sell you know what I mean? The agent seems like they're displacing people and, getting, like you have...
They will eventually, yeah.
But you got to add 2,000 people in the meantime to ramp up the AI agent AI. Speaking at a company event in San Francisco, CEO Mark Benioff said the second generation of its Agent Force technology, which creates and operates AI agents, will be able to tackle sophisticated questions. Would say, not so great at it now. It's rolling out an experimental version of an AI agent on its website to respond to users' questions about the company's products. We've talked about it before. I don't like talking. We crave human interaction when we call a place.
Yep.
And I keep hitting 0 as they ask, you can do this through your automated. It never works. They never hear you correctly. I keep hitting 0. Then, you've got like at least a 5 or 6 minute wait.
But if this thing can actually do it,
then it would be good. No, it would be good.
Unbelievable?
Yes.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm praying for. I want that.
It can't right now, though. Do you agree with that?
On the telephone, it cannot.
It cannot.
I agree.
Okay.
But I think that ChatGPT and some of these other services, Gemini, Claude, it could do a lot.
And remember we heard exactly how much every human-to-human costs.
Oh, yeah.
It's like an unbelievable amount of money to the company.
Per interaction.
Right. Like $10.
$10 minimum.
Tease will be next.
Coming up, the other Morning Joe. Joe Scarborough joins us on the government spending bill and Elon Musk's new exposure to the ways of Washington.
You can tell Elon Musk is a CEO that's used to having his own way and has not dealt with 435 cats that he's had to herd. When I was in Congress, Newt Gingrich only had an 11-vote margin, and those of us who wanted to balance the budget used that time and time again against him.
That's ahead on Squawk Pod. Welcome back to Squawk Pod from CNBC. Today with Joe Kernen and Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Lawmakers did reach a deal to avert a shutdown and extend government funding through mid-March, but the bill is sparking some controversy, and the timeline to pass it is fairly tight. Emily Wilkins joins us now from Washington. Good morning. We got to don't take long, Emily. We got to get time is tight.
Time is very tight, and they've got a 1,500-page bill now that released last night to continue those 2024 funding levels until March 14th. But look, Congress still faces a lot of hurdles to passing it before government funding runs out on Friday night. And part of the thing is that this bill, it just includes so many additional provisions plus that funding. It's got $100 billion in disaster aid for damage caused by hurricanes, $10 billion in assistance to farmers. It restricts U.S. investment in Chinese companies from developing certain technologies technologies like AI and chips, and it criminalizes creating AI-generated images of real people in deepfake pornography, among many, many, many other provisions. And while some lawmakers are supportive of these measures, they are upset that all of this was just crammed into this must-pass bill right up against the deadline of the Christmas holiday. You actually saw Elon Musk this morning tweet that the bill should not pass. And we also heard from many members yesterday, including Congressman Ralph Norman, who had some serious concerns.
First of all, very disappointed. We're doing the same thing the voters on November 5th said we shouldn't do. They voted for accountability, voted for change, and we're doing the budgeting process. 1,400 pages we have not read, and they asked them to vote. Hopefully they will abide by the 72-hour rule.
So that's key right there. That 72-hour rule, it requires lawmakers in the House to have 72 hours to read a bill before voting on it. But if Speaker Johnson sticks to that, the House isn't even going to vote until just hours before the deadline on Friday evening. That saves little time for the Senate to clear the package, and just a huge question mark as to what is actually going to unfurl in the next several days, and then what impact that's going to have on how Mike Johnson's Republican conference sees the Speaker going forward. Guys?
At this point, would Democratic votes be needed, Emily, and how many?
100%.
Yeah, and how many would it be? A lot? I mean, would it be dozens?
I think at this point there is a serious question whether a majority of Republicans will support this package. I mean, you've seen a number of them come out, have concerns about the process, have concerns about what was included, what wasn't included, the spending levels involved, and just really frustrated because Mike Johnson said at the start that he wouldn't be trying to cram everything into a last year Christmas bill. I mean, technically, this isn't a 2025 spending bill. It's just a continuation of 2024, but there is a lot of frustration, and you have to wonder how much that's going to impact that vote at the start of January on Mike Johnson actually being the Speaker, and whether we could see some sort of scenario like we saw with Kevin McCarthy last time, where it took a couple votes for him to actually lock down the speakership.
There's all kinds of different people involved, too. Trump could say, look, I like Mike Johnson, I want to get this done, but that would mean he'd have to be opposing or in opposition to what his best friend his BFF Elon Musk just said about don't passing it. So if the president tries to stand behind Mike Johnson and Elon Musk at the same time, there's going to be these dynamics in the future, and who wins out? Or does everybody just have to get along? And would Trump actually say, "Hey, come on, you guys, let's all work together on this"? How does that play out?
I mean, you are going to have to see exactly how Trump plays this, and then, of course, how members actually respond to Trump. If you remember a couple months ago, Trump tweeted to just shut the government down, and a lot of Republicans voted to keep it open. And so there are balances and lines here.
That was candidate Trump. That was candidate Trump, wasn't it?
And that's another dynamic. It's 100%. But at the same point, you have these very, very narrow margins, and you have these members who they know that if they just have a couple of them banding together, that they can stop major legislation unless they're given what they want. So there's a lot of bargaining power all around the table, and it is going to be the story of next year is going to be how much Republicans in Congress go along with whatever Trump wants, whenever he wants it, or if you are going to see some pushback.
And then you wonder when an ego the size of we've talked about it already, ego the size of President Trump and Elon Musk, and how can that last? Can that bromance last for the entire term? What do you think, Sorkin?
We will be watching closely. I think that's another big question right now in D.C. because Musk has a high agenda ahead of him.
I mean, this is what we talked to Walter Isaacson about.
That's what I mean. They might find a way to.
I think they'll find a way.
In all marriages. Emily, thank you.
Dysfunctional family.
Exactly. Give and take.
Like all family.
Give and take.
Joining us right now is Joe Scarborough, co-host of Morning Joe, a former congressman himself. You've seen this movie before. Joe, curious your reaction, but I'm also curious your reaction to the commentary that we've heard from folks like Elon Musk last night saying this was a bill that shouldn't pass, and what you think is happening inside the Republican Party as this whole situation goes forward.
Well, but you can tell Elon Musk is a CEO that's used to having his own way and has not dealt with 435 cats that he's had to herd. You know, when I was in Congress, Newt Gingrich only had an 11-vote margin, and those of us who wanted to balance the budget used that time and time again against him. And so you're able to force a speaker, you're able to force leadership more to the will of a smaller group, in our case, of more conservative deficit hawks. Here, though, what's fascinating is, for all the talk of a landslide victory, this was a 1% win. And you look at the House of Representatives, you've got a 1-vote margin at the end of the day. And what it's going to require is something that nobody expects in media, that nobody will talk about on cable news media shows, political shows. And that is that you're going to have a unity government in the House of Representatives. What we're seeing this time, today, where you're going to have a continuing resolution where Mike Johnson, the Speaker, is going to have to depend on Democrats stepping up to vote for his bill while some of the more conservative members are against it. You're going to see time and time again, because there are always going to be defections. There are always members of Congress that want to be governors next term or that want to be senators next term. And so they're not going to blindly go along with what House leadership wants. And when that happens, you've got to talk to Democrats. So you're actually going to I think we're going to have more cooperation in the House of Representatives than anyone would expect.
What is your expectation in terms of the influence that either an Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy, the DOGE, Team DOGE, is going to ultimately have over Congress? Not just the stuff they can maybe do through executive action.
Not a lot. And I say not a lot because, as somebody that's obsessed on balancing the budget, back in the 90s, we balanced it 4 years in a row. Only time that happened in a century. And what you find out very quickly is 80% of the budget is Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, defense spending, interest on the debt, things that members of Congress are not going to want to touch. So where are you going to get your $2 trillion? Well, first of all, you're not, unless you go to where the money is. And I just told you where 80% of the budget is. Are they going to really cut veterans benefits? No, I don't think so. At the end of the day, are they really going to cut infrastructure projects, kill infrastructure projects? I don't think so. I think the hope is that actually Elon Musk uses his vast talents to actually update and modernize a federal government that seems to be stuck technology-wise in the 80s or the 90s. He's going to make a lot more progress there than he will finding $2 trillion. Again, I think the national debt is a bubble and a bill that's going to come due, and we're going to get crushed as an economy if we don't get serious about fiscal discipline. We haven't been serious about it since 2006, but they're not going to do it by going through the government and slashing $2 trillion unless they're going to talk about Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, and defense.
Talking about discipline, this has been on the table, by the way, since you were in Congress. So I'm so curious what you think. I don't know if you saw yesterday President Biden calling, I believe for the first time, I don't think a president's ever said this out loud, that Congress should stop trading stocks. So if you are a member of Congress, you shouldn't be trading stocks. We constantly, read reports about it was Nancy Pelosi's husband or whomever it is trading stocks. It raises all sorts of credibility questions about what's really going on, whether there's inside information. What say you? You lived it.
Yeah, when I was a member of Congress, it didn't make sense. That was 30 years ago, 25 years ago. It doesn't make sense now. I mean, you have inside information. We saw it before the COVID crisis hit, before the COVID crash hit. There are a couple of Republican senators that appeared to be trading on information that they received beforehand. And then you have spouses that also are able to trade on that information. Now, it makes no sense at all. People that are dealing with the regulation of American businesses, or the possibility of tax breaks for American businesses, for them to be able to do that while also being able to trade stocks makes no sense at all.
Okay, but what's the right answer? And the reason I ask is, there's a lot of folks who say it's very hard to get talented folks who've had great success to want to go into Congress, given that a lot of these folks may have, outside income. By the way, look at the folks who are part of the Trump administration. They have outside income, and that unto itself is going to create questions.
Well, I mean, I guess you could put it, some members have put it into a blind trust that they have absolutely no control over, no say over. But it really, again, it needs to be done. We're actually seeing, though, a much bigger problem here. And I know Elizabeth Warren was talking about her concerns with Elon Musk using his position to gain advantage, commercial advantage. But we're also hearing that from Sam Altman. We're also hearing that, of course, from Jeff Bezos and other people who are his competitors. I mean, obviously, it's a real concern and a real problem, whether you're talking about a member of the administration or a member of the House or the Senate. And I think you need to do whatever can be done to make sure that legislators, when they get into Congress, that they're legislating and they're not trading stocks and they're not trading in on their influence to give their businesses an advantage over other business competitors.
Real quick, because I know you got to go. You were just in the UK, France, and Germany, I think.
Where you got to go, Joe?
He's got a show.
I was thinking about that. You have had. You remember Scarborough Country? That was such a good name, but you can't use it. You can't use it anymore because it was like Marlboro Country, so you couldn't. And then you get Morning Joe, another unbelievable name. And I'm sort of envious of both of those. I am. I'm envious.
Now, Joe, you've been offended, and I will let you know that anytime anybody asks, I say the real Morning Joe is on Squawk Box, baby. Joe Kernen.
That's nice.
I will. I have said that, Joe.
I know you have.
Yeah, you've heard.
There's a lot of similarities, and you know what? We're going to get. We're going to be a lot more dependent on each other, I think, Joe, in the near future here.
Yeah, I think so. I got to say this, though, Joe. And Joe, I think you'd be shocked. I mean, at the roundtable discussions I had in London, I was up in Cambridge talking to people. You'd be shocked by the number of Europeans that are so envious of our economy right now. A malaise has really crept over not only London, because, of course, the Labour government has had a disastrous start. They've been anti-business, and so a lot of capital's fleeing. But, of course, you all know it's happening in France. It's happening in Germany right now. But I heard John Maynard Keynes' name come up a lot. They kept talking about animal spirits. They said, you Americans have it. We just don't. And we look at you with envy. And right now, especially in Britain, they're having a real identity crisis, and a real gloom has set over the country. And they're looking to the United States, and they're hoping that our economy continues to sort of lift all boats, and that we don't mess it up with tariffs or reckless fiscal spending, which, of course, I think, again, I think that remains one of the most dangerous long-term challenges that this economy faces.
We'll be only too glad to continue to lead the world, I think, Joe, and hopefully that continues. We should.
Let us hope.
Because we're exceptional. So we should, and we deserve it.
Yes, you are, Morning Joe. Yes, you are.
Joe Scarborough, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, guys.
Great to see you.
Where's he going?
He's got a show.
Oh, that's right.
He's got a show to do.
It's nice that he takes a little time out.
Yeah.
Comes over here.
Next on Squawk Pod, cybersecurity expert Cris Krebs on keeping the data from your business safe from foreign threats.
We have the capability right now, I think, to trace back a number of these actors that come in from China, steal intellectual property. And it's not just cyber, right? They're using academics. They're using insider risks. They're using current employees.
What tools might work? Right after this. This is Squawk Pod.
Stand Joe by in 3, 2, 1, cue Joe.
You're watching Squawk Box on CNBC. I'm Joe Kernen, along with Andrew Ross Sorkin.
Our next guest is going to weigh in on the cybersecurity challenges facing the incoming Trump administration, including the massive ongoing Chinese hacking campaign called Salt Typhoon that recently targeted U.S. telecoms like Verizon. I want to welcome SentinelOne Chief Intelligence Officer Cris Krebs. He's served as the inaugural director of the Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, and ran U.S. cyber policy for Microsoft. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so what is the challenge and what is the cost, since all we do is talk about DOGE every morning, to actually deal with these things?
Yeah, look, the last couple years, we've seen an increase of Chinese cyber activity. There was a campaign announced about a year and a half ago called Volt Typhoon that was going after civilian infrastructure and was going after military infrastructure. Now you've got this Salt Typhoon one that's going after the telecoms. So China, just like we've heard from the current administration, is the pacing threat. That's the biggest issue right now. At the same time, you've got ransomware. Ransomware continues to hit every aspect of the economy. You just had Krispy Kreme knocked offline and disrupted operations. So what I expect to see is an increase of offensive cyber activity. It's something that the first Trump administration picked up with something they called persistent engagement, which just means get out there and get in the bad guys' networks.
Can I ask you a different question? We're having this big debate about tariffs around the world. Can tariffs be a way of dealing with this? Meaning, if Trump calls up Xi and says, you got to knock this off, you keep this up, and I'm coming after you.
It's possible. I think probably a better way to do it, or at least an option to consider, is as we continue to see intellectual property theft. So the last 15 years, as Keith Alexander said, is the greatest transfer of wealth in human history. What I think we need to do is go after the firms coming out of China that have operationalized stolen U.S. intellectual property, put them on the entities list. Make them unavailable globally. They may still be able to sell inside China, but in the meantime, they're not going to be selling into the global south. They're not going to be selling into Europe. And that's one of the ways I think we can kind of rebalance.
And you think it's clear who those firms are?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it may take a little bit of time, but we have the capability right now, I think, to trace back a number of these actors that come in from China, steal intellectual property. And it's not just cyber, right? They're using academics. They're using insider risks. They're using current employees to steal it, take it back. If you can identify the way that that intellectual property has been operationalized and commercialized, then boom, you can go in and get them
And you don't think, though, that there's a diplomatic approach to this?
Absolutely not.
Impossible.
I don't think so. Look, the way that we view intellectual
or diplomatic
property,
versus, when I say diplomatic, that's tariffs.
It's geoeconomic levers they can pull, perhaps. But they're going to continue doing this, because they see intellectual property as something that's open to everyone. It's like the entropy of data. It's just, it wants to be free. And so they're going to go get it and they're going to bring it back. Tariffs could work, but I think they're a cudgel at this point rather than a really precise tool.
Can I throw you a complete curveball? I don't know if you're watching the broadcast earlier this morning, but we've been having a conversation for the last 2 days about quantum computing and encryption. And this idea that, 5-10 years out from now, what Google or Alphabet announced last week, if it stays apace, we're going to need all kinds of new encryption for everything to remain safe, both banking, and then there was obviously this bigger question about something like a Bitcoin and whether that even works in a universe where this is all breakable. What do you think about the sort of processing power that may become available and what that ultimately means?
So this is an issue. This is an issue for every business out there that has secrets. This is an issue for every government out there that has secrets. But it's also an issue today where we're still having difficulty getting companies just to implement multi-factor authentication. Even the most important companies in the world still are not rolling multi-factor authentication, so they can't protect today's secrets. But you can live in today's world where you can deploy the security necessary to defend against today's threat actors, but you also have to have in your product roadmap, in your enterprise roadmap, the post-quantum crypto reality of baking in whatever the
And what is that? Just much stronger, longer algorithms that are the encryption?
Yeah. So NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology in the U.S. government, has released a number of different algorithms that they're testing, that they're receiving feedback on. The National Security Agency doing the same thing. So the algorithms are out there for organizations to start baking into their roadmaps. It's just going to take that much more OpEx to get it done, to protect the networks. I do think we have some time. I do think that the use cases that are going to come in and hit agencies or organizations are still 5+
Does it represent a risk
out.
to crypto, do you think?
Probably, sure. I mean, if particularly if we're rolling today's crypto, but if there is a level of cryptocurrency cryptography, double crypto, that has the right quantum safe cryptography baked in, AES 256. There's stuff out there now that I think stands a good
What does that even mean?
Right.
You just said.
AES 256.
Say it in English.
Are you stupid? What's wrong with you?
I got to go back to school.
God.
There's a level of cryptography available that should be fairly resistant.
To layer in a
And is that for all cryptocurrency, or that's the big question about like.
I got to admit,
issue.
guys, I don't spend a lot of time talking about cryptocurrency.
Okay.
I don't. But yeah, there.
I said it was a curveball. I didn't know if you know.
I got a guy.
You got a guy.
Talk to the guy.
Okay.
He knows
who the guy is. And
he knows the guy.
We'll make it happen. Cris, thank you
Just
for coming.
layer in a
Happy
high
holidays.
performance Pascal with a right.
C++.
Okay, now I'm lost. That's a different kind of.
Yeah.
Can you code at all?
Like HTML.
Basics.
I've
Very
seen
basics.
that before.
Basic. I could do basic. You remember that?
Fortran?
Yeah. Oh God, no.
Cris, thank
Here
you.
we go. Thanks,
Appreciate
sir.
it.
That's Squawk Pod for today. Thanks for listening whenever and wherever you do. Squawk Box is hosted by Joe Kernen, Becky Quick, and Andrew Ross Sorkin. Becky will be back tomorrow. Tune in any weekday morning on CNBC at 6 Eastern. But no time to watch a 3-hour morning show? Or you want the highlights? Get all of that and much more when you follow Squawk Pod, wherever you like to get your podcasts. We'll meet you right back here tomorrow.
We are clear. Thanks, guys.